Welcome once again, fight fans, DAZN MMA with Dan Hardy, and I am Sean O'Connell. Three things that I am most looking forward to as the PFL playoffs continue, this time in New York City at Madison Square Garden. Women's featherweights and heavyweights over on the men's side, of course, looking to punch their ticket to a PFL championship. Dan, I'll start with you. The thing you're most looking forward to for our New York City card, the second of three playoff events.
I like this animosity between the two guys in the main event. I know it's been simmering, and I know these guys are, even with the language barrier, they're not particularly keen on one another. And Maurice Green's coming off that weird circumstance in Atlanta where it was an odd performance. He had John Jones in his corner, of course. That was the Ngannou face-off night, but just kind of like he felt like he'd won the fight at the end of it. And I wonder what that's done for him in this training camp, whether it's going to change the way that he fights, because he's fighting someone that has got a height and reach advantage. I mean, when does that ever happen to Maurice Green? I'm interested to see him as the shorter guy and see how he deals with that, especially coming off a fight where I'm sure watching it back, he'll be like, I could have done more. I could have definitely, bit down and thrown harder. That's an easy pick, but we've got some other heavyweights on the card as well, two UK-based heavyweights in Babley and Sutherland. I'm excited to see those boys as well because they can both crack.
Louis Sutherland, last time out we saw him, he looked absolutely incredible. And we were just having a conversation kind of off air about the physical specimens that if you can grab them from other sports and you can put them in mixed martial arts, that's Louis Sutherland, right? He was a national level rugby player who now is pursuing mixed martial arts instead, and the potential is very clearly there. You mentioned Reina Ferreira, so I'll start there. Problema has had some problemas of his own, right? He's been a guy who athletically, nothing is left to be desired, right? His striking, you can make an argument, is as dangerous as anyone else in the heavyweight division worldwide. But it was figured out that if you can make him a fish out of water, you can put him on his back and make it more difficult for him to create power and use his explosiveness. You can beat him, right? You can wear him out because heavyweights often have gas tank problems. And so some people are trying to exploit that. Similar to what we've seen with Sada Bousti in another PFL weight class, it appears he made the training change that he needed. He's now at ATT. He's figuring out a way to use those long levers and that crazy height to an advantage in defending things like takedowns and stopping guys from pushing him up against the cage and just wearing him out there. And he is still young enough that if he is figuring it out now, how to use, his height as a real advantage. I mean, this guy could be a world champion for many, many years. We've all trained with these individuals, Dan, where it's like, sure, you have the thing that I wish I had. So just go out there, learn what you need to learn, and then execute inside of the cage, inside of the smart cage. If he gets to that level, I mean, we're talking about potentially the birth of another heavyweight legend here.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I was thinking the same thing. Like imagine you put yourself in that frame just for a few minutes and go into a regular MMA gym and spar. You're like, oh, hang on a minute, I can keep you right over there away from me. You can't even touch me. This is perfect. It's scary the amount of distance he can cover. I've watched his last knockout. I've watched that a few times, but he's kicking from distance as well. You just you watch how much distance he covers using the sponsors on the canvas to see how big his strides are. You're like, literally, he can cover the smart cage with like 3 or 4 strides. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's amazing. So everyone's looking forward to see if, all due respect to Maurice Green, but if Reina Ferreira fights to his potential, there's not a lot of people that are going to be able to stop him. And Maurice, I think, is trying to figure out a way to keep him from realizing that potential, right? Grind him against the cage, take him down, do the things that a mixed martial artist can do with the right amount of skill to this freak athlete. So I'm very much looking forward to how that main event pans out. Also, there's 2 other fighters on the card who I think have the skill set necessary to stake a claim as truly some of the best in the world. And I'm not just gassing it up because these are PFL fighters. I really think that Denis Goltsov, right now, without the same kind of questions I'm asking about Reina Ferreira, right now Denis Goltsov has the skill, the technique that he can be one of the best heavyweights on planet Earth. Right now,
Yeah.
he in past seasons, he's run into mental blocks in the semifinals. Right here is where Dennis Goltsov, either the pressure gets to be too much, or there's some performance anxiety, or there's distractions in camp that make, affect his preparation or whatever it is. This has been the roadblock before. If Dennis Goltsov, who has the physical size, the athleticism, the strength, the speed, the jab, if he can win most MMA fights with just his jab. If Dennis Goltsov gets out of his own head, he can stake a claim as one of the best, most complete heavyweights on planet Earth in any organization.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you nailed it with the jab. I mean, you look at what he did in his last fight against De Castro, just lined him up with that jab for a beautiful straight cross. I feel like, you're right. It's the pressure that's going to get to him. He's got a lot of experience, especially compared to Heidemann, who's coming in here as a relatively new fighter for this division. Compared, I mean, the experience that Goltsov is bringing in, you've got to think that now is the time for him to, step up to the plate and show people what he's really capable of. I think we saw moments of it in that fight against De Castro, but he's going to have to use it all the way through against Heidemann, a big individual. We know for sure he's going to try and take it down to the floor because, I mean, from top position, he's an absolute nightmare. And if you're dealing with someone that's got a jab like that, you've got to nullify it, even if it's just for the first portion of the fight. Take some of the sting out of it and slow them down. I'm really looking forward to this fight, and this is something that's unique about the PFL's system, and I think the likes of Jesus Pinedo and Gabriel Braga have benefited from this. Is that fighters young in their career are getting opportunities against world champions, former world champions, and top ranked fighters find themselves with these opportunities, and you know full well from your own experience, MMA is evolving quickly. These young fighters can very, very easily get an upset, and that's where Heidemann's looking to come in and do this weekend. Put Goltsov on his back, nullify that jab, and upset everybody, and put himself in the championship.
The other individual that I'm referring to as someone who truly is world class and just kind of needs to keep proving it. In her case, it really is keep proving it, because Dennis Goltsov has yet to prove it truly at the level he needs to. I think Larissa Pacheco has proven it, right? That she is truly world class. Her upset win over Kayla Harrison hopefully staked her claim as one of the best female fighters in the world in any weight class. Now she's going for a second PFL championship in a lighter weight class. That was at 155. Now she's at 145. And Kolesnik is a tough out for her. As we saw, they've already fought one another. And Kolesnik was landing before she ran herself onto a right hand that ended up being the end of the night for her. But for Larissa Pacheco, I mentally put her in matchups against Kolesnik, certainly, against Kayla Harrison again, against Cyborg, against Kat Zingano, against all the, against Amanda Nunes, against Juliana Pena. And I'm doing this and I'm saying, you know what? She can at least hang, if not beat, any of those individuals. So why don't people talk about Larissa Pacheco like she's the best female fighter in the world? She doesn't get mentioned in those conversations, so she still has to earn this respect. But Dan, she has demonstrated to us that at her very best, she is that person. Of course, the onus is on her to keep doing it, right? She's now got to do it at 145. She's got to do it against someone she's beat before. She's got to do it again to win another championship before people really start paying attention. But I'm already on board the Larissa Pacheco bandwagon as one of the best, if not the best, female mixed martial artists in the world.
Yeah, and you've got to think, if she picks up a belt in a second weight class, I mean, that's kind of it's the benchmark in the modern day of mixed martial arts. If you can be a champion in two weight classes, then you're really on the money, and that's. And I think what we're seeing with Pacheco, she's at a peak, right? She's found this point in her career where everything's come together. We know how good she is on the ground. We can see how powerful she is on the feet. Her striking's improving all the time. She's becoming more measured as well from one fight to the next. And I think that's going to be a key in this fight against Kolesnik, who, of course, she knows her very well. The first time she was able to catch her with some counter strikes, and that's one of the reasons why she went charging into range like she did. But the second time she allowed Pacheco to walk her down a bit and she was bullied. I think she needs to find that sweet spot in the middle. And she might think to herself, this is a clean slate, new weight class. This is this is the time to get that revenge. But at the same time, if Pacheco's able to overcome and then get into the championship, pick up that two-weight champion, featherweight, lightweight, like it speaks for itself, doesn't it? The trouble then will be finding people that are worthy to step in there and challenge her. And I think, there's a few people on that list, but very few. Cyborg being, probably top of the list for me. If she's able to put Cyborg away, that always gets people attention.
Of course, these fighters that we're talking about, right? I'm talking about big picture, worldwide status, legacy stuff for these fighters. They've got to focus on the bouts at hand, right? They've got to win and advance. If you don't, of course, the conversations I'm bringing up are not even part of the conversation. You can't even win the championship this season. You're not going to be sparking any conversation about your place in the overall world of mixed martial arts. And we have seen upsets. You alluded to the situation in the men's featherweight division with Jesus Pinedo and Gabriel Braga, taking out two former title challengers to punch their ticket to a championship bout. It's the beauty of competition, sports in general. It's the beauty of our format here in the PFL, where the matchmaking does not determine who's going to end up in these championships. It's the fighters winning and determining their own destiny, because that's how we do it. Regular season, playoffs, that's where we're at. And then the championship will be right around Thanksgiving in the States.
Oh, and number 3 thing I'm looking forward to this Friday, of course, is seeing what setup Sean O'Connell's going to show up with, what suit and shoe combination he's going to be wearing. And then when the show starts rolling, what's he going to be doing with his impressions of Andy Shepherd? Because there's something that the broadcast, the people, the watching, they don't get to appreciate these things. They'll see the sharp suit, but they won't always see how well you've complemented it with your footwear. And they certainly won't hear you ripping into Andy Shepherd all the way through. So that personally is what I'm looking forward to this weekend, Sean. So please don't disappoint me.
Is that like an ugly American thing to be doing, by the way? How like we are always viewed. Okay, good. Because I love me some Andy Shepherd, but I love making fun of him. And I just hope that it's not perceived. And I certainly don't want to be giving my entire country a bad name because I'm bullying some handsome British boy,
No, I think it probably makes him feel more at home, in fact, because that's how we communicate most of the time with one another over here. Don't disappoint me, Sean. I need to see some good shoes and a good suit. I'm looking forward to it.
That's Safe travels. I can't leave the house without looking incredibly handsome and dapper. You know that, Dan. So
looking like $1 million.